just say where you are, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
If that's true.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Kalamazoo Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting of November 16, 2020. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the city's Facebook page and the city's YouTube channel. You can also listen on your phone by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 935-4452-0467 when prompted. And you may leave a 3-minute public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And with that, I'd like to turn tonight's meeting over to the City of Kalamazoo's Mayor, David Anderson.
Thank you so much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. Here we are in Zoom land again, having our public city commission meeting for Monday, November 16th. Welcome to everybody. And Clerk Borling, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham.
Eric Cunningham is present here in the great city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Hess.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Knott.
Here, Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Commissioner Urban.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Mayor Anderson.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo. On our agenda this evening, we first have an invocation, and we are lucky enough to have Pastor David Zomer with us here from Bethany Reformed Church. Pastor Zomer, would you like to start us off?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we ask your blessing upon each one of these council persons, that you might give them the wisdom they need in these very difficult times. Thank you for giving us the city of Kalamazoo to be responsible for a place in which we love. I ask that you bless this meeting tonight. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. There are no special guests tonight or proclamations. So, commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes that commissioners would like to see?
Mayor,
Commissioner Pradle.
if there's an item on the consent agenda, would this be an appropriate time to request to move it to the regular agenda?
That's correct.
I'm wondering if we can move item number 6, the adoption of the resolution expanding social districts, to the regular agenda.
All right. Thank you so much. So there are no other regular agenda items. So this will be item 1 under the regular agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Pradle. Next item is communications, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain.
We have no communications tonight, sir.
Thank you. So now on our agenda is the opportunity for general public comments. And I'm going to pass it back over to Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. Do we have comments tonight?
Yes, we've received a few, and we'll go ahead and broadcast those, sir.
Thank you.
Jeff Messer, city resident. Tonight is the first meeting of the second half of the 53rd City Commission. So, because of Commissioner Aaron Knott's historically high rate of absence, it is time to report on attendance over the past year. Thank you to Mayor David Anderson, Commissioner Jack Urban, Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin, and Commissioner Gene Hess, who all have 100% perfect attendance this term. As Woody Allen said in 1977, showing up is 80% of life. Commissioner Chris Pradle has missed one meeting this term, the rescheduled virtual meeting on October 26. There's no explanation for his absence on Twitter or Facebook profiles. When Commissioner Pradle was running for election in 2019, he said he wanted to model Libertarian Party Congressman Judson Amash by explaining his actions on social media. I hope Eagle Scout Pradle recommits to this ideal going forward. Commissioner Eric Cunningham was absent for the virtual meeting on Tuesday, September 8. There is no explanation for his absence on his Facebook profile. Then we come to Commissioner Aaron Knott, who is the entire reason for this attendance report. This is the third time I have addressed the commission regarding her poor attendance record. Last term, when she had the title of vice mayor, she was absent at regularly scheduled city commission business meetings 9 times, resulting in an absence rate of 19.1%, which is equivalent to skipping out on 1 out of every 5 meetings. This term, she has been absent during 5 meetings on November 18, 2019, March 2nd, July 6th, September 21, and October 26th, giving her an absence rate of 21.7%, worse than last term. 3 of those meetings were virtual, which demonstrates that Erin's lack of commitment to her duties goes beyond the ability to be physically present. The commission itself is partially to blame for Erin's horrible attendance record. You continue to excuse her unexplained absences and pay her for meetings she is not attending. As I did 1 year ago today, I again asked the City Commission to reconsider its longstanding practice of automatically excusing all commissioner absences. You have an example to follow on the Downtown Development Authority, where Chair Grant Fletcher has ended this practice. Sometime between now and July 2021, the public will learn whether or not Erin intends to run for another 4-year term on the City Commission. If she chooses to run, I ask the voters of the City of Kalamazoo to hold Erin responsible for a horrible attendance record by voting for other candidates. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Tavares, live in the Vine neighborhood in the City of Kalamazoo. And I'm calling to comment on the recent contract given to the OIR group. It's going to be looking at the police practices through equity lens. My question is this: police practices, or is it going to be racial bias and prejudice in city government? Because they're 2 separate issues here. I remember back in 2013, 2014, a study done about racial profiling. Whatever happened to that? And don't you think some of the same biases and racism is still in place? You know, when I walk down the street and being a person of color and I get followed, why am I being followed as opposed to other people who are not being followed but walking down the same street? Are you folks looking at that, and will they look at that? What actuates a white officer to follow somebody who is black or brown versus somebody who is white walking in the same direction, maybe on opposite sides of the street, but nonetheless going the same direction? That's happened to me. I don't think you're really looking at this correctly, and if I may speak very bluntly here, I don't see where many of you are facing it where the possibility exists within yourselves. Anytime I see a dismissal of where racism comes from, which is inside the person, and how it is carried over into the structure of city government, I'm not seeing where that's connected. Why is it that in Kalamazoo it was 2 times likely to be stopped by KDPS for a traffic violation? You don't think that same kind of thinking didn't go into formulating the responses this past summer between the peaceful protests that turned ugly and the Proud Boys rally? Same thing. Making a judgment about somebody based on color and where the threat comes from. Are you folks studying what that threat comes from and where and why? Or are you just pretending?
This is Brandy Crawford Johnson, City of Kalamazoo taxpayer. I think it is a terrible idea to cut down 721 trees for the expansion of non-compliant polluters like graphic packaging and the wastewater treatment plant. The north side is a dumping ground for toxic chemicals that are coming from both plants. Any toxic spill in air, soil, or water is dangerous to human health. 1 mature tree provides oxygen for 4 people, and trees help protect the health and climate of city residents. Taking away those trees near a neighborhood that has an asthma hospitalization rate 5 times higher than anywhere in the region is cruel. I can't express enough how many deaths have been caused by environmental racism in the fence line sections of our city. More leaders should have stepped up to protect our life and health. Why couldn't these plants move to clean energy? They certainly have enough money to use pollution prevention and convert. I know that God wanted me to protest against this injustice, and my heart is too big to sit quiet while innocent people get sick or die. You will see more reports from doctors, research scientists, and toxicologists come as the months go by, and realize that you should have listened to me in 2018 when I joined the ECC with asthma, telling you the city was graded F for air quality and pollution. You should have done air quality studies right then to protect the city, not send a letter to the Lung Association telling them not to report your air quality data to the public anymore. It shows that you are a city government with zero compassion for human life. Students cannot learn properly when sick, and it shows in the attendance and test scores at our schools. There are huge death gaps between white and black people, as you know. This needs to be addressed as well. The facts cannot be denied. My feelings are hurt that you didn't notify us the odor was toxic gas leaks, or the fact that there was no pollution prevention and malfunctioning equipment causing toxic releases that could harm us. I'm exhausted from studying so hard and calling every expert I could think of while sick myself just to try and save everyone in this humanitarian crisis because you hid the truth. The anxiety and stress is almost unbearable. It's devastating to know the uneducated and racist leadership over the years cost so many lives. Most of us that survived will be on medications forever. Profits over people is not the way to go. May God bless all the lost souls and protect the rest of my family and community who are still stuck in harm's way next to the hazardous facilities. I wish I could have relocated everyone with us. May God also protect them and the rest of the world from COVID-19 because pollution is also linked directly to severe cases we are seeing. Environmental racism is real. Climate change is real. Now is the time for you all to get more education and stop the discrimination. Being a government official does not mean you're above the law. I'm going to leave my comments.
Mayor, that was the last public comment.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, and thank you everybody who called in this evening. Next is our consent agenda. DCM Chamberlain.
Yes, sir. First on the consent agenda is approval of a professional service agreement with Whiteman Associates for engineering services for the real-time decision support system Smart Sewer Shed Phase 1 project in the amount of $197,300. Next is approval of a contract with Viola Water Technologies Incorporated for the procurement of 10 rotating disc microfiltration units and 2 automatic chemical cleaning skids in the amount of $3,222,500. Next is approval of a contract with Zima Corporation for the procurement of a perforated plate screen unit in the amount of $152,755. Next is approval of a contract with Smalley Construction Incorporated for the demolition and cleanup of 4 vacant houses and structures on North Street and Woodward Avenue in the amount of $119,355. Next is approval of a resolution approving a state trunk line maintenance contract with the state of Michigan Department of Transportation and designating James J. Baker as the state trunk line maintenance contract administrator for the city of Kalamazoo. Next is acceptance of the 2020 Bulletproof Vest Grant Award in the amount of $29,623.75 from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs. Next is approval of the sale of city-owned lot at 1015 Albert Avenue to the Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services for $500. Next is approval of an easement on city property located at 1415 Harrison to Consumers Energy to supply 3-phase electric power to Graphic Packaging International and to the City of Kalamazoo's water reclamation plant. Next is approval of minutes from the City Commission meeting of February 17, February 24, March 2, March 16, March 31, April 20th, April 27, May 4, May 18, June 1, June 15, July 6, July 20, and August 3rd, 2020. And finally, authorization of the city manager to execute the acceptance of good faith written offers from the Michigan Department of Transportation to acquire easements and fee title to city-owned parcels adjacent to and within the I-94 right-of-way within the city of Kalamazoo. That is all, Mayor.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. So commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 5 and 7 through 10 and postpone item 11 until December 7th and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
Point
Motion
of
made
inquiry, Mayor. Point of inquiry, do we need to vote to move item 6 to the regular agenda?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
Do you want to respond? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why I did not include it, just in my summary right there. And I want to authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Urban. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're on to our regular agenda. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain.
The first item on the regular agenda would be adoption of a resolution expanding the social districts containing common areas to allow certain on-premise liquor licenses, expanded use of shared areas for consumption of alcohol pursuant to Public Act 124 of 2020.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. So on a regular agenda item, we would allow for public comment. Is that accurate, DCM Chamberlain?
Normally we would, but under the new rules that we passed at the beginning of the summer here, the public comment period comes at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
And that is his only opportunity.
That was the opportunity. Okay. So then in order for us to get going on this, then do I have a motion to adopt the resolution? Then we can have discussion once we have it on the floor.
I make that motion.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Motion made by Urban. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Knott. Discussion. Commissioner Pradle, yes.
I just wanted to kind of bring forward and just a thought that I've been having, and this was certainly spurred by the emergency order that occurred on Sunday. You know, our restaurants, our bars, they're going to be struggling with the second wave. And, you know, this also coincides with the time of year that outdoor dining is not going to be possible. And so I noticed that the map that includes the social district carved out Bronson Park. And to me, this would be akin to, you know, an alcoholic event in Arcadia Festival site. And, you know, you can drink alcohol, but you just can't get close enough to listen to the music. And during the holidays, it is the central draw of downtown. And if you look at the district mapping, it maps all the way over to Saugatuck Brewing Company with a strip along West Michigan Avenue. And so I see it as kind of a threefold issue here. So one is that, you know, our small businesses and their employees are going to be suffering in these downtown businesses. We've seen it. They're already closing after wave 1, and we're now entering wave 2. This new emergency order has made it even more difficult to, you know, stay in business without outdoor dining. The second one is enforcement. So, you know, you're going to potentially have many people who are downtown walking around, and, you know, again, the prized gem of downtown this season from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve, you know, are going to effectively be able to enjoy downtown with their labeled cup, but not be able to, you know, do so in Bronson Park. And then the last part of it is just that, you know, again, this is like the period that Bronson Park is truly like the draw downtown, and we don't have, you know, the lighting ceremony. We're not going to have New Year's Fest as we normally have. And so, you know, you're going to have people just more, you know, by hapstance going out on a date night with potentially their alcohol walking around downtown. And I think that we're kind of, you know, potentially we could be helping these small businesses, the restaurants and the bars, if we were able to carve that out. I know one of the challenges with it is that that according to our ordinances, it says in, I think it's section 2. I tried to look this up earlier today, but it's on the section on parks and recreation, and it's 33-24. It says no person shall consume or possess alcoholic beverages in a park except during events where such possession or consumption is expressly permitted by the city. Then in section S, it says an officer, so a public safety officer, is to provide a warning for violation, and it requires them to leave for the balance of the day. If the person refuses, they're charged or arrested for trespassing. So anyways, then I also looked up, I saw in April 2018, the city commission changed the ordinance to allow beer, wine, and liquor in parks for special events. And the misdemeanor was changed to a civil infraction. So I guess, in order for us to do this and carve it out, you would also have to make sure that somehow we would have to address that parks alcohol ordinance, I guess, if you will. So anyways, I feel like given the circumstances that happened on Sunday, I feel even more compelled to at least try to fight for this. And it's not just for our small business owners, but for their employees, because I really think this could be something that could be a real attraction tool for our downtown this holiday season and allow it in a way where people can social distance.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Pradel. Hey, just if you don't mind here, do you mind if I ask our city attorney, you quoted some ordinances there. Attorney Robinson, do you have any comments as it relates to any of the incongruity in the social district and ordinances and how that might play out?
Yeah, I'll go on record as saying the one that I probably opposed, because it was originally the Bronson Park was within the social district amendment, and I was the one that opposed it for a variety of reasons. Number one, you shouldn't, let's put it that way, amend other ordinances by a resolution. And this social districts can be moved by resolution. So I think that we need to take a look. If we're going to permit alcohol in Bronson Park, we need to look at a lot of questions surrounding that. I recognize the time of year, but if this goes into effect, we're going to be stuck with this unless the boundaries get changed again through the end of 2024. So it's just not the holiday period, it's all year round. And we already have issues with people in the park who don't always follow the rules. The social districts permit drinking as early as 10 o'clock in the morning. And Bronson Park is, as pointed out by Commissioner Pradel, kind of the capstone, if you will, of downtown. It is a place of gathering for protests. And if you've got people who are protesting, I don't know that adding alcohol to that mix is a good idea. It's also a place. It's also a place.
Can I just interrupt a second? I just wonder, just on the specifics of an incongruity of ordinances, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but what would the steps be in a process if one desired to modify an ordinance on one side to make it, congruent with this resolution? I mean, what would be the steps for that process?
We, like any other ordinance amendment, we amend the ordinance. It would go for 2 readings, and unless we deemed it an emergency, and then that would go into effect 10 days after its adoption.
Okay. Thanks you. That's what I was kind of looking for, as a process question there.
Yeah. And for the process question, obviously you've got 2 meetings in December. I suppose the quickest we could do it, if you really deemed this an emergency, so as to include Bronson Park, and so that it melded, so that it neatly meshed with other ordinances regarding alcohol in parks, we could do it the first meeting in December, and do it, if we deemed it an emergency, a one-off.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Commissioner Cunningham.
I don't have and then maybe Commissioner Pradel and Attorney Robinson do have the actual ordinance as it pertains to drinking in the park in front of me, but I believe the statement was you cannot drink in those parks unless approved by city commission. So would this not operate in the same manner as, somebody requesting the opportunity or event? We say yes or no to it. Is that not comparable? How does that equate?
So here's my question. So the way it's stated is N says no person shall consume or possess alcoholic beverages in a park except during events where such possession or consumption is expressly permitted by the city. Now, I guess you could argue whether, the social districts and the limited nature of it related to, COVID-19 is considered an event. I'm not the city attorney, but I just, when I saw that, it kind of jumped out to me, but also just the fact that it says where such possession or consumption is expressly permitted by the city, it does give it, it seems like it would give you that latitude. The other thing I would note as well is that, the 10 a.m. drinking argument, my thought is as well, if you're going to drink in the park, you can drink on any street corner. The second thing is, the way that these social districts work, you have labeled cups. So the idea is that's the way that you're supposed to regulate, the source of the alcoholic consumption. And if somebody's abusing it, then you need to take it up with that business who's, serving somebody liberally with that. And then the same thing with the protests. My thought is if somebody is, abusing alcohol during a protest, the same deal, they have to have a cup with a labeled cup. They can't just bring in their own alcohol. And, again, they could protest with the labeled cups on the corner of West Michigan and Park if they wanted to. So, I struggle with that. And, I know when COVID first hit in mid-March, we enacted a number of emergency actions because we knew that there were going to be serious repercussions on our small businesses and on individuals. I cannot think of a more dire emergency that we see than a second wave and the impact that it's going to have on downtown and our small business community than in the next 2 months. I mean, the next 2 months they're describing as like the dark winter. And, and when they talk about that, we're largely talking about a lot of these businesses that are already on the cusp, struggling to stay open downtown. I've not been approached by a single small business owner about this. I'm doing this on completely my own fruition, but, there are a lot of jobs on the line. There are a lot of businesses on the line. And I think this would be a great way to support them and help them get through this period without outside dining, especially in the coming months. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel. Commissioner Cunningham?
Going back to your statement, Commissioner Praedel, I think the flip side to it is, once again, if individuals are walking downtown with that alcohol, I think naturally they're going to feel as if, unless we have express signs in that park, that is open and available space to do so. So I don't know, that kind of brings up another issue, in general is, how do we ensure the guidelines of where individual can go and can't go? I don't know if maybe there's maps in each place that is selling this alcohol, but that's something to kind of think through also. But I, as of right now, just kind of from the feeling of where everyone else is, or from most of the conversation that I've heard, I'm in agreement with you, Commissioner Praedel.
Thank you, Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Hess?
Hi, I noticed that Andrew Hahn is here and from DIGA, and I wonder if he would speak from the downtown perspective of this issue.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Commissioner. So, Commissioner Praedel, thank you for bringing this up as well. We truly are in a bit of a crisis mode, or at least on the precipice of one, I think. We've had a bar and restaurant of 19 years close recently that was truly a staple. As with all of this, I'd like to point out that when we brought this to you all back in August, our intent was really to have a small pilot area, test it out, see how it worked, kind of try everything, throw it at the wall and see what sticks. And we've had really good feedback from the businesses. I'm a little surprised in the fact that we have not had any issues with nuisances so far. I mean, that may happen at some point, but we have not yet. I do know we've had a lot of interest from businesses that were not yet included. We've really asked them to be patient and have said, we want to make sure this works and advocate on your behalf with commission. So with all of this, whether it be the times or the boundary or whatever, there is opportunity to adjust if it becomes problematic. So I don't know if there were specific questions, but we think that giving any opportunity for an additional sale right now truly is important. Commissioner Cunningham, did you have a question for me?
Can you give an example of some of those other organizations that aren't included that would like to be included?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone is able to look in your packets or not, or share screen, but I'll try and from memory name what this would do. So the current commons area within the social district, and it's kind of wonky the way that this is written. The social district gives you the ability to draw the commons area within it. So the social district is the whole Downtown Economic Growth Authority boundary, so that we had flexibility within that. The commons area, as originally passed, was Kalamazoo Mall and a block of Burdick stretching from Cedar Street to Eleanor, and then Michigan Avenue from Rose Street to Edward Street, and included also Bates Alley and the connecting alleys. There you go. Thank you, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. So you'll see that salmon colored area is the current commons area. The lavender there would represent the expanded. So those businesses over on the top right, kind of at our northwest corner of downtown, 600 Bar and Kitchen, Maru, Hopcat, Old Dog, Food Dance, Water Street Coffee, Beer Exchange, Shakespeare's, Tin Can, the new hotel, Saugatuck Brewing, and the Park Club. I think I hit them all. So they would all be eligible, and most of them have inquired about participating. So of the original ones that were deemed eligible, there's only one that is open that has not participated, and they just don't have a bar within their restaurant that lend itself to people walking in and out to get drinks. So, Commissioner?
My apologies. I was under an assumption that you were making a statement that there are still others that are not included in what we will potentially pose or approve tonight. Is
No.
there other?
I mean,
okay, I'm sorry.
We drew this. There are a couple of other liquor licenses within the district, but at some point we felt like we needed to kind of cut it off as they got more spaced out and really were not connected to the density of bars and restaurants.
Do we have a list of those organizations?
I do not have a list off the top of my head. I would
Or
say
at least the ones that have inquired and are asking for that opportunity.
I do not have a list. I could certainly go back through my communications and tell you. I do know that, just today I was asked by Water Street Coffee Joint about it. We've had inquiries from Tin Can rather, Beer Exchange and others, and Hopcat.
Andrew, could you speak to the signage that you were talking about as well? Like, how would that change in Bronson Park to Commissioner Cunningham's question about the signage?
I think I would want to connect with both the city attorney's office and the parks department. Bronson Park is kind of special in the way that it's signed and, has its own master plan. The district itself, we did a, kind of a quick and flexible signage. We basically printed off, they're a little bit bigger than a notepad, but kind of 8.5 by 11 sized corrugated cardboard signs that are printed, and those are up on, parking signs and stop signs and other stuff throughout the district. So we're working with public services on potentially doing some adhesive sidewalk signs and other things. I think, we want to keep it contained to where it's supposed to be, but again, it's not been an issue with people moving about and, all over. So I just want to stress again that the intent was to be malleable and flexible with this and see what works. And if there are things that don't, to consider changing them.
Any other questions for Andrew Hahn, Commission? So just while we still have the map up here, just a couple things I would like to note. As we're looking at it, you can see that our original pilot district was the salmon section, a very much smaller section in the middle there. Thank you. And which sort of has a certain logical boundary, I guess, to some extent, where we brought it down to streets. And you can see now that we are talking about really a considerable expansion with the purple lines included, some of it obviously reaching way out, to connect another business that doesn't happen to be, within, it happens to be a few blocks outside of this denser zone. So you see quite an expansion here. So I know we haven't had any challenges with this initial section, but as we expand it quite out, these boundaries are going to become somewhat more amorphous, I would think. So Mr. Hahn, I know that you've heard from other cities and other people are grappling with this issue, related to, having this kind of a district and expanding it. I mean, how do you feel about what we have accomplished so far here and our next step to the expansion?
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. So a couple of things I'll point to. We've been really, I'm really proud of what we've done as an organization and a community, and thankful for all of you for being willing to try things. We're still getting calls from large and sophisticated downtowns in Metro Detroit that are still struggling with how to do this. So kudos to kind of us as a community. Grand Rapids has done 2 or 3 different commons areas, each of which is probably close to as big as this expanded one. So they're really struggling with, let me restate that. They are, my understanding is they're looking to figure out how to deal with that issue of people moving about. If you've got a block that isn't in it, et cetera. We had talked about doing something like that where we considered a second commons area for the east end. Just didn't seem like an easy thing to educate people on. A similar law was passed in Ohio in 2015. Toledo has had something like this. They've had great success with it for the last 5 years. The other thing that I want to note as well, as we were drawing this new map, we took into consideration the fact that this could actually help with recruitment of businesses potentially, and it really wasn't something we thought about before. So we have some vacant storefronts, and if that becomes an added selling point, hey, you could locate a bar or restaurant here and you're part of the commons area. So I don't know if Mayor, that answered your question. I tried to. I think we don't have great anxiety around this larger thing. And again, it's, we're in the spot where we're trying everything and seeing what works, and without taking undue risk or anything like that.
Thank you. Maybe Jeff, we could take that down now. Thank you. Other discussion, commissioners?
Mayor,
Yes.
I also just wanted to apologize because for City Attorney Robinson, this is ordinarily not something that I would try to bring up last minute, but again, like I said, I felt spurred by the emergency order yesterday that this seems like somewhat of an emergency type opportunity for us to tackle.
Other discussion? Commissioner Cunningham.
So do we have to make an amendment at this point?
Well, I don't know what we're pushing for at this point. I mean, right now, what we have in front of us is this resolution to expand the district, as we just saw on the map, which does not include Bronson. So, correct, if we want to change this resolution, we will have to amend it. But I want to go back to Attorney Robinson here, who said you cannot change an ordinance with a resolution, if I understood that language. Can you talk a little bit about that, Attorney Robinson?
Certainly. The ordinance as written, and I had it in front of me a minute ago, was written so as to permit special events. And I'm looking at section 3325, because that's what was amended. It is basically a misdemeanor to bring an alcoholic beverage into a city park. And this was originally requested by the Parks and Recreation Director so that he could have a special event and people could bring their own alcohol to the special event. So for that reason, we were very careful the way this was drafted so that it was, number one, the Director of Parks and Recreations may designate for a special event that beer, wine, and liquor can be used in city parks. The container, not more than 72 ounces. And during the special event, they may only be consumed in the designated park. And then only open, sealed, unopened containers of beer, wine may be transported to and from. So basically, you come to a park, you can bring your capped beverages and enjoy them, and then you recap them when you walk away to leave the event. The other section permits alcoholic liquor may be sold or possessed in a city park during the period of a special license with the specific approval from the city clerk and in conformance with the special license granted by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. In essence, this is for where you have an outside vendor who's going to sell beverages at the site generally, and they're going to get a special event license for that purpose. So those are the two exceptions. If you want to change this for a city park so as to permit social districts, it seems to me that we need to amend section 3325 so that the resolution and the ordinance mesh. Because at this point, just by opening up social districts to Bronson Park runs counter to these restrictions at section 3325.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson.
So can we consider this a social, the common areas to be an event during those times for a specific period?
Well, the special event, as I said, there's two types of exceptions. The special event that the Director of Parks and Recreation permits, and then the special event where an individual gets a specific license from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, and the city clerk says, yes, you may have an event there. Those are usually short-term, usually I think no more than 2 or 3 days at the most type of special events in that regard. Obviously, the Parks and Recreation Director would be just for an afternoon or an evening.
But the ordinance reads as city commission approved. Or am I wrong? And
No, there's nothing in section 3325 that talks about city commission.
It's only Parks and Recs can make the approval.
And the city clerk and for a special license.
Commissioner Urban.
Well, it seems to me that the Parks and Recreation Director could declare the Christmas holidays as a special event, the whole holiday period as a special event, and just to go ahead and do it on his own and allow liquor to be consumed in a way that is currently permitted by the ordinance. You don't have to go to get a labeled cup. You just bring your own stuff there. If people are so inclined to do that, that's the way they can enjoy the park, if that's the thrust of what Commissioner Prado wants. But I do not want to hold up the approval of this enlarged district on account of Bronson Park. I'm ready to vote on approving this just as written. And if we need to carve out some special rules for Bronson Park, I'd like to do that as an amendment or as a separate issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Other discussion? Commissioner Prado?
So an idea, if it wouldn't be possible to consider under, because the way that the actual ordinance is written, it doesn't use the word, and maybe I'm mistaken here because I was trying to transcribe it in my notebook, but it says during events. It doesn't say special events. And then at the very end of it, it says where such possession or consumption is expressly permitted by the city. And that would be us, right? So
I guess, well, what section of the code are you looking at, Commissioner?
N under 33-24.
Okay, let's see.
And the other thing is, if for some reason we need to set it up where we would have to alter the ordinance, we could, I was trying to jot this down and try to think of a way to word it, but we could pass the resolution or adopt the resolution common area with inclusion of Bronson Park at time which the park ordinance allows for it. So you could write it that way where you could, conceivably take care of the action like Jack is saying now, so we don't miss out on the opportunity to expand it. But then once the ordinance changes, enable the ability to include Bronson Park. My only reservation would be is then you lose out on, 2+ key weeks of potential, time that they could be making alcohol sales when they're in the process of shutting down.
And so I'm processing it, I think, in a similar way that you are, Commissioner Prato, in that what you just read in regards to the ordinance allows for us as the commission to make that determination based upon what Attorney Robinson is saying. Is his vantage point is that it would be Parks and Recs that will authorize that. So either we can amend it so that the commission is stating that it is allowable, or we can amend it to say, as a part of our resolution, we are recommending that Parks and Recs director approve X, Y, and Z for this amount of time during this amount of time.
Well, and to that end, there's what you're attempting to do, and I appreciate what the commission's attempting to do, but you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, because it talks about events. This is not an event that you're talking about, a social district. It is a daily, if you will, happenstance. That once you put this, once you increase the district, then it is not an event. It's just a way of doing business. So to that end, you're really giving these two sections of the ordinance some really cramped readings. The better approach would be, as Commissioner Cunningham pointed out, is to amend the ordinances. That can be done. Unfortunately, this comes in at the last hour, and you can't amend the ordinance tonight, because you got to give the public an opportunity to be heard on the issue. And I think that's in part why Bronson Park was exempted. Because I would suggest that there may be people who would not be particularly happy with having alcohol during the Christmas season in Bronson Park. Now, there may be a lot of people in favor of it, but I think you also hear from some people who might be opposed to the idea.
Commissioner Prato.
Mayor. So my thought is that, it's not like the alcohol is like flowing from the fountain, from a fountain in Bronson Park. It's not, the sales are not existing in Bronson Park. So, people have a little bit of time to, purchase their drink and then walk to Bronson Park. So I don't think, and as Andrew was saying, there's not a lot of drunk people, wandering around. There has not been abuse that they've observed, so far with this experiment in the smaller zoning area. But, again, if there was ever an opportunity to use emergency powers, if such would be permitted in this circumstance, I think this would be it. I think that these businesses, their employees are going to be on pins and needles every single day. And, it just feels like something worth fighting for, because we know that, this one thing could be the difference for people. And the fact that people are going to be going downtown to Bronson Park to enjoy the holidays starting effectively a week from this Thursday, there's not a whole lot of time. So I don't know.
So maybe, I guess my thought is, and I'm just trying to figure out the workaround, because with what Attorney Robinson just stated, I think there's a reality to that too. So if something does arise where this becomes a problematic issue, if it took us 2 weeks to get to it, it would take us another 2 meetings to flip it back, for which I'm not comfortable with. What I will suggest is, I think there's some wordplay we can create, whether it's in this resolution or another resolution, in order to call this an event and authorize it for a certain period of time, an ongoing event from such and such time to such and such time for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. An event is just a planned public social gathering. So I think I'm looking for an answer in that capacity.
So Attorney Robinson, do you want to make a comment on that?
Going back to Commissioner Urban's, I feel comfortable we can vote it through without adding in that component. What I think is important, because it's enough dialogue that's even just transpired in this moment, is that we figure out what that looks like in order to get it done. And I don't know whether my colleagues will feel comfortable with voting it forward, but I will feel comfortable with passing an amendment or creating a new resolution.
Well, this is some out of the box thinking, but here goes. Normally, you'd need 2 meetings to adopt an ordinance resolution unless it's an emergency. To some degree, the city commission has the ability to define what is an emergency. So whatever prejudices I have in regard to permitting social drinking as an emergency, I'll leave that aside. But in order to adopt an ordinance, you have to adopt it at a regular meeting or at an emergency meeting. And the next regular meeting is the 7th of December. And as has already been indicated, that would take out 2 weekends, not including the upcoming weekend, starting the 2 weekends after Thanksgiving. What could be done to ameliorate that would be, and this is rather convoluted, so bear with me. The City Commission could, at tonight's meeting, amend its calendar of meetings to either one of 2 things, either create a regular meeting on the 23rd or the 30th of this month to reconvene for the purpose of considering an ordinance to address the issue that we're discussing. Then you would be able to, you could declare the need to extend the social districts and the ordinances that would permit that as an emergency, adopt it then, and it'll go into immediate effect. So that's the parliamentary way to, and consistent with the charter, to make it work.
I feel pretty strongly, like Jack was saying, that if that were the case, though, that the rest needs to get done today. Because for the vast majority of those businesses, it has immediate impact, effective now. And so I would not want to Jack's point, I would not want to hamper, that progress of all those other people tonight because of a small segment. However, I still feel that, if you were to think about, say 100 new sales that are happening because of alcohol, I think potentially, I feel like that it could have a significant, percentage of those 100, coming because of people knowing that they have the ability to roam, Bronson Park with their drink. And so I obviously it's in everybody else's hands, but I think it's worth addressing at a later time, even if it is December 7th. But it's like I was saying, I mean, I don't know if there's some way to adopt the common area as presented with the inclusion of Bronson and stipulate in that with the inclusion of Bronson Park at time which the park ordinance allows for it. So that would basically open it up to, whether it be a special meeting or, December 7th to allow that.
Commissioner Urban?
I'm okay with that because it allows us to move ahead on the main thing that was thought through and presented this evening, and because of some other, but it doesn't forestall some modifications for the Bronson Park at a later time, and we've thought more thoroughly through it. Because of bad internet connections, sometimes I'm not hearing everything that's being said that has to do with wording of an ordinance change. And So I'm reluctant to spend a lot of time on trying to craft an ordinance change this evening, but I would support an amendment such as what Commissioner Pradel proposed. We can vote on that first and then go on to the main motions so we can move things along.
And I want to clarify, when I was suggesting calling a regular meeting in one of the last two Mondays of this month, I did not mean to say that you couldn't adopt what's been presented to you tonight. It's just that it would not permit Bronson Park until you took action to make it so. I'm not suggesting delaying action on what's being presented tonight.
Attorney Robinson, were you able to hear the suggested amendment to the motion that would add Bronson Park, when and if it becomes acceptable related to an ordinance change? Did you hear him express that?
Yes, I heard that. I'm just saying that if the desire is to do it sooner than December 7th, it's possible to do it.
Right. What do you think about that language change?
That would work. That language change would work, and then between now and the 7th, presumably, we could get an ordinance together that would accomplish that purpose.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. Other discussion? So at this point, we are looking for an amendment to the resolution. And in essence, I guess you have already made that motion, Commissioner Pradel? But do you want to officially make that motion then?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution on the proposed commons area with inclusion of Bronson Park at a time which park ordinance allows for it.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Urban. Clerk Borling, were you able to capture that?
Yes, what I have is that Commissioner Pradel moved to amend the resolution to include Bronson Park in the commons area at such time as city ordinance allows for it. Is that correct?
Right. Sounds good. According to Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Cunningham, did you have further discussion on that?
I think I'll save it, depending on how this vote goes. I'll save it for in 2 weeks if
Okay.
it is voted up to discuss.
All right. So everybody understands that what we are voting on now is an amendment to the resolution that's in front of us tonight. Any other discussion on the amendment?
This is just the amendment, not the resolution.
Correct. Just the amendment to the motion.
I have a question for Andrew Hahn. Andrew, how much of a difference is it going to make in the business of downtown if Bronson Park is a part of this social district?
Well, I would be reluctant to put a dollar amount on it. I'm sure that there are people who would move the needle if they were to, if the choice was to drive through a neighborhood in your car and see lights, or come downtown and walk around and have a cocktail and do it. I can see one being more preferable. I also want to point to, though you could accomplish it with a special event provision or event provision, we're also looking ahead to things like art fair and other events and times post-COVID that this would really lend itself, to helping drive business. So it's not going to make or break things. The bulk of the people being added are on the east end, and there's probably very few that are going to walk from 600 Kitchen to Bronson Park with a cocktail. But nonetheless, I think, I would say that we have heard support from businesses and from our coalitions, our community leadership network in doing this. So I'm sorry we've taken up so much of your time tonight on it, and certainly appreciate the thoughtful discussion and analysis of it, though.
Thank you, Downtown Director Hahn. Any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission. The amendment passes. Now we are back to the adoption of a resolution expanding the social district. We already have a motion made and supported for that. Is there any discussion on that topic, that item, before we vote on that? Seeing no further discussion, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Commission. That motion passes. Next on our agenda are reports and legislation. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, do we have any reports?
No official reports tonight, sir, but just wanted to just, speaking because we are talking about Bronson Park, and we did mention it here this last week that we will not be having the tree lighting ceremony, but just encourage the public to come on down with or without a drink, and spend some time with the families here, and also be watching social media and the news, because we might have some special surprises kind of popping up here to announce here shortly before Thanksgiving. And then also just on behalf of the city manager's office and city administration, I know others will be talking about this too, this being the first meeting after the election, wanted to just really thank Clerk Borling and his staff for all that he's done, including Shelby Moss, Lisa McNeese, John Hambright, Amy Klein, and Jeanette Sage. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and their entire office did a great job, not only running the election, but also staying in communication with all the other departments. And so just the flow of information and the professionalism among not only Clerk Borling, but his staff and also the wonderful community poll workers was just very much appreciated. So I just wanted to thank Clerk Borling for that. That is all, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager. And I just wanted to say relative to that, thank you for naming the names for the team that Clerk Borling works with. I think that's important, and it's I think we do that too rarely, and it's too long of a list to go through all the folks who were poll workers. Probably Clerk Borling, you would know what that total is, but once again, just a great group of community supporters and volunteers that help make an election happen. So thank you very much for recognizing those individuals. Now is the time on our agenda for commissioner comments. Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I wanted to put in front of all the commissioners an issue I hope that we can get on to the city commission agenda, perhaps at our next regular meeting. It has to do with modifying our practice of having small group meetings. So I'm going to read to you what I have in mind, so I don't sound too confusing. I suggest we experiment with an alternate format for conducting our informal meetings, replacing the small group meetings with a single committee of the whole meeting. These meetings would occur twice a month, and I suggest that the committee of the whole meet at an equal frequency. For those in the audience who are unfamiliar with our procedures, we have for as long as I have been on the commission, and sometime before that, held meetings with no more than the mayor and 2 commissioners or 3 commissioners present at a time. If an extra one of us shows up, one of us is denied entry. That is done to comply with the Open Meetings Act. which specifies that no more than 3 elected officials can meet in private. In our case, it's the largest sub-quorum group that we can have. And we can't meet without proper public notice. And in those sub-quorum meetings, no binding action can take place on any topic. So that's been our practice. This has always seemed to me a cumbersome arrangement that leaves commissioners and the public alike to wonder what went on that was not communicated to all 3 groups. It takes nearly half a day for staff to be tied up in these meetings each time they occur. And inevitably, some information is received secondhand or out of its original context. My alternative is a committee of the whole meeting. This the county has used to great effect, and their meetings are in full compliance with the Open Meetings Act. And to be in full compliance, the meeting must be open to the public, must be adequately noticed, and must allow for citizen comment. The county committee of the whole meetings do all 3. The only thing they don't do, and this is not required by the OMA, is to televise it. The county chose not to televise it for their meeting for a variety of reasons, and I advocate that we not do that either, at least not at first. So I propose that we adopt the committee of the whole format as done in the way the county does it. They've had good experience, and we can all draw from that for a period of 1 year with a review near the end of that period to see if we should modify or drop that arrangement. Now, I don't expect us to vote or even discuss that this evening, but I do want to put it in front of folks so that with the acquiescence of one of you, in addition to me, we can get this on the agenda. It takes 2 people to get an item on the agenda, 2 commissioners, or commissioner and the mayor. So my big reason for proposing this, and this is the crux of the matter. This way, in a committee of the whole format, all the electeds get information from the staff at the same time. All electeds hear the questions at the same time and hear all the answers that are given at the same time. This vastly cuts down on the risk of misunderstandings, miscommunication, and puts all of us exactly in equal position of knowledge, provided we're at the meeting. This is also one way we can move further in the direction of transparency, and I believe this will foster trusting relationships between us and the public. We're relatively fortunate, I think, on our current city commission right now, in that there's no noticeable animosity among us. No one has a secret agenda that I'm aware of that could make these meetings potentially problematic. So I would like to take advantage of the good feeling that we all have right now and institute this thing on a trial basis while we have this era of good feeling and see if we can extend it. So my proposal is to have this on the agenda at a future meeting, provided I can find another person to support me in that. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Urban. Commissioner Cunningham?
Commissioner Urban, I support us having that conversation on the dais. I know that there's probably a document coming out from one of our reporters relatively soon, just giving their thoughts and their opinions on the subject. And, you know, whether I agree or disagree, you know, if that's the topic of the day, then that's how we kind of operate. So I think it's worth discussing, especially with a new body, relatively new, or it feels like every year is a new body. But that being said, once again, COVID is running rampant in our community. I need everyone to stay safe. It's, I hear things such as, I'm not concerned with myself. Let's be concerned about others. And that's a reality. So I'm just, putting out an ask. I'm pleading, I'm asking, begging that you stay home. Keep your contact interaction with people at a minimum. Follow the guidelines set forth by our governor, and try to respect those boundaries as best as possible. And once again, to our new electeds in the community, it's a labor of love. So for individuals out there who are newly serving or maybe moving into a different role, this body, and I, if anybody wants to correct me, please do. We're all willing to work. We're all willing to work with you. And we all have different things that we want to champion for our community. And so I'm excited to, do that work. One of the things that I think is relevant to point out in this political climate is that, talking down, condescending, taking a hard stance of not willing to engage or communicate won't get us far. So I just want to encourage all of those who are, whatever your vantage point is, to continuously engage, no matter how agonizing that may be. So thank you, Mayor Anderson, for allowing me to give a few words.
I really appreciate those sentiments, Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Knott?
Sure. So I guess maybe we'll take a minute to point out the irony that the Republican leadership at our state legislature canceled State House and Senate ledge sessions this week at a time when they could have session and discuss the recent surge that has taken over communities across the state of Michigan. But there's an outbreak at the legislative level, and they've had to cancel session, with session now, I think, beginning sometime in December, probably for the lame duck. And I guess my message would be, to the majority leader and to the speaker, that they need to be part of the solution or get out of the way. And I'm grateful that Governor Whitmer and her administration took steps to protect our community yesterday evening with the press conference that announced the 3-week pause that begins tomorrow. We just kind of went through a debate as it related to Bronson Park and how do we help our businesses downtown. And I guess, as I was listening to some of the comments made by my colleagues, I reflected on there are far still too many of us that are resisting the reality of COVID and the increase of positivity rates, hospitalizations, and deaths that are, again, soaring across the communities here in Michigan. And if we want our restaurants and our high school sports and our downtown to survive this pandemic, then we need to take the next 3 weeks and prove it to ourselves, prove it to the community that we're willing to make this sacrifice, so that 3 weeks doesn't turn into 4 weeks, doesn't turn into 5 weeks, doesn't turn into several months. But right now, I fear, based on what I've seen over the last, going back into the summer, is that far too many of our fellow community members can't see beyond their own lives and don't realize how their actions are having severe consequences to the community as a whole. So again, I'm grateful for what the governor and her administration did last night, and I hope that we all can rally around and take this pause seriously so that it's not extended, into 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. Commissioner Pradel?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to take a moment to respond to Jeff Messer's comment, and I apologize for not acknowledging my last absence. I had not intended for us to have a meeting on the 26th. My grandfather died at the end of April of COVID, and my family had not had an opportunity to pay reasonable respects to him, including be a part of his burial because of peak COVID and the emergency stay-at-home order. And so my family had planned, my immediate family had planned some quiet, peaceful time to go reflect his life in his hometown. And unfortunately, we had planned it for a day that we were not anticipating having a city commission meeting. So I apologize for missing that, and I can assure you there was nobody more upset about destroying my perfect attendance record than me and not being able to be a part of that meeting. So I apologize for missing that and not disclosing that at the last meeting as well. But that leads to the next point about COVID. In a matter of 2 days, my life changed forever in the end of April. I had to say goodbye to my last living grandfather by phone, as he was dying in his bed in a hospital room. The next morning at 8 a.m., my wife and I were in the hospital. By the afternoon, she was being rushed to the OR for emergency surgery. We thought we were going to lose my son. So that was within a 24-hour period. And she was, back there and for a lot longer than she would have needed to be because of COVID. We were unable to have anybody support us or be a part of his first days of birth. And for my family, at least, that was an immediate wake-up call about how serious this really is. And for every single person and number that you see on the news that loses a family member, it becomes intubated in the ICU, just remember that there's a family, that there's loved ones, that there's friends, and there's people that will reel from those impacts for the rest of their lives. So I encourage anybody who is on the fence about how serious to take this, that your thoughts about how serious to take it might not happen until it's too late, or you're saying goodbye to somebody for the last time, or you're figuring out how to navigate the difficulties of an emergency situation in the hospital with a loved one. So please, Kalamazoo, take this serious and follow the order. Wanted to take a minute as well. I think maybe some of my colleagues are aware of this, but in October 2019, Morrow Dams experienced a failure of a spill gate. And this is, with everything that's going on in the world and in the news and with the election year, not a very large number of people have been paying attention to this, but you may or may not have seen some notices by the city that there was a drawdown on the Kalamazoo River around Election Day, which was a result of the company who owns it, which is Eagle Creek Renewable Energy, and STS Hydropower, which is a subsidiary of Eagle Creek, of finally repairing the spill gate after almost a year. I don't know if I can bring this up, if you can see this on my phone, but if you haven't had a chance to see a picture of Morrow Lake, this is Morrow Lake prior to the spill gate repair. If you didn't take a really close look at that, effectively, you would probably mistake that for a farm field after a heavy rainfall. So it has had serious ramifications, not only on that lake, but for us as a city and the surrounding jurisdictions has had serious impact ecologically and on the impact of our river, and a lot of impacts that we might not know for years to come. So I'm going to ask my colleagues, and I've been reaching out to other municipalities and leaders in this region, and I worked with County Chair Tracy Hall to co-author a letter that I'm going to be asking all of you to please be willing to sign your name on at our next meeting. And so if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to read the letter tonight so that way you know what I'm going to be asking you to sign on to next meeting. We addressed the letter to Mr. David Fox, representative from Eagle Creek Renewable Energy. We, the undersigned, represent the Kalamazoo River region impacted by the Morrow Dam spillway gate failure. We are reaching out to express our grave concern over the lasting ecological and safety implications on our communities from the release of excessive sediment overflow resulting from the failed reservoir spillway gate replacement in October 2019. The implications on the river's vegetation, fish, and wildlife is likely to be long-lasting. Those who have enjoyed the river for recreational purposes have observed potential decreased fish populations and aquatic plant life. Habitat for aquatic insects, crawfish, baitfish, mussels, fish, turtles are now covered in sludge. So long as the river contains the sediment sludge, it will continue to wreak havoc on the wildlife and ecology of the river. The sediment flowing downriver has created dangerous conditions for those who enjoy the river for recreation, has created sediment islands, has created large inlet blockages, impassable recreational launch areas, and created conditions that would make it difficult for public safety to perform rescues in cases of emergencies. Although spillgate repairs are underway, and a limited quantity, a quote unquote, limited quantity of sediment will be removed immediately upstream of the dam and 3 short-term modifications required. We do not feel this to be enough to adequately repair the damage caused the miles downstream, mostly through the heart of Kalamazoo County and our communities. We need reassurance that more than a limited quantity of sediment will be remediated. There is still an unknown environmental toll taken by disrupted sediment released from the dormant state and potential toxic or pollutant material discharged into our communities. It is imperative that independent or governmental regulatory bodies regularly test sediment of the river to monitor the levels of potential dangerous contaminant toxins. It is also vital that our communities be made aware of what contaminants may be observed in high levels, and we understand any ecological and safety implications of such releases on our population and our wildlife, if they exist. As part of the conditional permit issuance, STS Hydropower developed a mitigation plan, which included deployment of targeted sediment control measures, on-site monitoring of permitted activities by an environmental monitor. We would ask for further understanding of these monitoring practices. We understand that as part of the mitigation plan, a combination of shoreline contaminant, turbidity, curtain checks, and fiber core logs will be placed. Regular users of the river still observe excessive sediment spillage downriver, even after curtain measures were in place months prior. Incremental improvements are not acceptable. We demand that Eagle Creek Renewable Energy return any impacted sediment or segment of the Kalamazoo River to its previous state. It is imperative to the ecological habitat be restored. It is also imperative that there is a clear understanding of any sediment contamination that occur at unsafe levels, and impacted communities be notified and apprised of plans to remediate. We also feel it be imperative that our communities receive regular and ongoing updates regarding the progress made on repairs, monitoring, and restoration. We look forward to hearing back from you. Like I say, my hope is that we can, I'd like to present that to you as my colleagues next meeting to ask, potentially add your name to that letter. We hope to do the same with all the other municipal governments throughout this region, the townships and the county level. County Chair Tracy Hall is planning something similar with the County Commission in the coming weeks. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that, given Open Meetings Act, just to make sure that I did it in a public and open fashion so that you could get a heads up about that forthcoming as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pradel. I presume that you have also been in touch with our state legislators and the State Department Eagle, which would be involved in enforcing actions as well, correct?
Yeah, I've been receiving regular updates from Senator Sean McCann's office. He's been doing a great job of representing the county and keeping, I've been asking them to please send any updates they've been receiving as well. So they've been sending those on an ongoing basis. And then I'll also add that a recreational fisherman was willing to take County Chair Hall and I out to see the damage ourselves. And that's where I took the picture as well. So I can't begin to convey how damaging this is. The pictures don't do it justice when you're looking at sediment buildup in inlets or on islands in the river. It is dramatically changed in recent months. So I appreciate the question.
Okay, thanks for bringing this forward. Commissioner Hess.
Commissioner Pradel, I want to thank you for that. If you could send me a copy of that letter so I can share it at the Environmental Concerns Committee on Wednesday, I'm sure that they would be happy to endorse as well. My comments were also regarding COVID. Governor Whitmer just said this can only be successful when the people rise up. And as I say almost every time, community is a verb. It takes all of us doing and taking action, wearing a mask, staying socially distant, making decisions on behalf of the other. So I'm going to ask that we totally take that seriously, or in the words of another official, our healthcare system will implode. That said, we have lost this community and has lost a wonderful healthcare professional. Chelsea Bowitt was a good friend and graduate of Kalamazoo Central, graduate of Kalamazoo College and Wayne State Medical. And she was a wonderful physician in Grand Rapids with a young family, diagnosed with colon cancer at age 34. So what she would ask us as a community to do is be a verb and get our rear in gear and be aware of the signs and symptoms of colon cancer and to take action. If our healthcare system implodes, it cannot just care not only for the victims of COVID, but for people like Chelsea, who have had to live their last days in a COVID environment. So please, please be aware and take action on behalf of your neighbors. And stay safe. I do want to remind people of the Kalamazoo Youth Council that is being formed in Kalamazoo that will only enhance what we do here in Kalamazoo. So if you is between the ages of 13 and 17 and want to serve on the Youth Council, please look at the Parks and Recreation site. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. I'm glad you mentioned that. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit thrown off of my comments. I was under the impression that we were going to be having a conversation as a commission in regards to gun violence and what we could do as a commission about gun violence. And so perhaps I'm mistaken, perhaps I'm confused, or perhaps I maybe have the dates wrong. So maybe somebody can clear that up for me.
Vice Mayor, apologize if there was a mix-up on scheduling here. We did not have that for a presentation tonight for discussion, but we'd be very happy to get with you and the mayor this week to make sure that it does get scheduled so we can have that discussion.
Yes, and I'll share comments that I've shared in our, small group meetings on this stage now, as we're reminding folks of COVID-19, which is incredibly important. Please, everybody, make sure you stay safe and take this seriously. I cannot forget that we're in the middle of another crisis, which is gun violence. And I accept all the responsibility in what I see as a failure of this city to do more to address this. It is not the sole responsibility of the city. However, I feel like there's more that we can do. And as it's November 16th, we've been sitting in this for quite some time now. We're able to have robust discussions about several things. And as Commissioner has just pointed out, we have to take action. And so, maybe the community, or maybe some people don't understand how serious it is because you only hear the reports, but I promise you, there are gunshots between the reports. There are homes getting riddled with bullets between the reports that you're not seeing, that people are not forgetting about. That trauma is very real. And so we need to invest in our communities. We need to get people some help. We need to do more than just have conversations and read about it online. And so, I apologize. I'm just a little bit thrown off because that's super high priority for me. And I thought that was going to be on the docket for today. So yes, if we can get that on there sooner than later, because we're past time, beyond time, we're a little late. So yes, everybody, please stay safe. Please wear your mask. Please take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Griffin. I feel like I somehow, does everybody want a second chance? Oh, you're waving at somebody. I thought you were. Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
No, my apologies. Can I be allowed to speak, Mayor?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up because all of my colleagues stressed how important it is to concerning COVID in our community, and I know that there are concerns around gatherings and things of that nature. I just wanted to first acknowledge that this body has no legislative authority, and correct me if I am wrong, Attorney Robinson, to restrict businesses or certain sizes of gatherings beyond probably our Parks and Recs events body. So that being said, I wanted to encourage the community that if you are seeing certain situations within businesses or within the community or certain individuals who are not following certain rules, I'm gonna shoot this over to our city manager, Chamberlain. Can you kind of speak to what are the options out there when these type of things are arising?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. I think you summed it up well. But from the very beginning of the COVID crisis, we've taken the position, we at the City of Kalamazoo, of trying to educate the public and to encourage them about what the rules and so. When we get the opportunity, if there are gatherings of people, we've been going out and talking to them, like we saw groups earlier this year at the parks and things like that. Again, we were taking the approach of trying to encourage and educate folks. The state of Michigan does have a hotline that if they are concerned about certain violations or something like that, it's 888-535-6136. That people can call the state of Michigan, and I believe that will then get to the appropriate agencies. But again, we have the authority through the City of Kalamazoo to approve or deny events in our parks, events that happen in the streets, but we don't necessarily have the authority as the city to regulate what goes on within the businesses or what goes on within somebody's private residence or apartment building. And so that's where, again, I think you're hearing the same message from many officials of asking for compliance so that everybody does stay safe.
Thank you, Deputy Chamberlain. And just because I know there are a lot of concerns out in the community, I know that all of my colleagues, we are trying to champion more efficiency, more leadership as it pertains to cutting down on these scenarios that are endangering not only ourselves, but our families, our friends, our colleagues. So thank you again, Mayor Anderson, for allowing me to put that information out.
I appreciate that very much. So I just wanted to follow up with the Vice Mayor's comments also. This is something we've been having some intense conversations about for a while and are very interested in moving on. I can't emphasize more how much I support what the Vice Mayor just spoke to and the critical nature of the issue that we need to address there. So just a couple things that have just come up here. One related to your question, Commissioner Cunningham, is that I did have a conversation with our chief, Vernon Coakley, our new chief here, as it related to the governor's announcement yesterday. And it is the case that a local, public safety entity like we have can take steps to enforce certain public requirements that are incorporated in this pause, which is going to affect on Wednesday. And as a matter of fact, that is something that public safety has been doing, in previous instances when emergency orders were issued. So, certainly like everything else, we're hoping their approach first is education, talking to people. We're not asking them to go out and start writing tickets right and left. And certainly it is the case that, we're also not asking public safety to patrol people's backyards or Thanksgiving gatherings to make sure. But when it comes to more public events and businesses that are not complying, that is certainly something the chief has committed to, that they will continue and be educating and enforcing if necessary the rules that are there. So thanks to our chief for that. Had a good conversation about that. Also, I just wanted to say a little thing in general about absentees at this meeting. I'm personally embarrassed that someone like Commissioner Pradel has to apologize to go into a funeral for a loving family member in order to be, an acceptable being absent from this meeting. I think that's uncalled for. I don't think that's necessary. And those, I appreciate you being forthcoming about that, Commissioner Pradel, but in my personal opinion, I don't think that should be necessary. As far as any other folks who are absent here or there, it is I mean, things come up in a life and we're trusting each other as adults to have to make those choices about this commitment that we've all made and other things that come up in our lives. So as another point about that is that I'm certain that Commissioner Knott, for example, who has been absent more, that's not her first choice. Things have come up for her. She's happens to have an increasingly busy work life lately, but just attending this meeting is not the only thing that commissioners do. And I think that doesn't recognize the fact that there is a lot of work and input and participation that happens behind the scenes and subcommittee meetings and input with involvement with our city staff. So I just want to remind people that that goes on as well. This is, I guess the last thing I want to say was just along a theme tonight. There's actually been in touch today with our county health department, who's ultimately responsible here for assisting, with reminding people what they should be doing here in Kalamazoo County as it relates to being safe. But I reached out to our friends over at Bronson Healthcare and got some information from them. And I just hope this maybe will personalize our thinking just a little bit here over the next few weeks. And this is from Bronson Healthcare. The pause plan that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is initiating this Wednesday, November 18th, is an important action in light of the rampant spread of COVID-19 in our community and the risk that even more people will become infected if social gatherings are not limited. Without such measures, the threat is very real that hospitals will soon be overwhelmed with patients, and many people may not be able to get the care they need for COVID-19 and other health issues. While hospitals can create space for more patients, they can't create more doctors, more nurses, and staff to take care of them. The supply of healthcare workers is limited. We, talking about Bronson, are working hard to protect them in the workplace, but we all need the community to help. The best thing community members can do is put safety first. If everyone wears a mask, stays 6 feet apart, washes their hands, and avoids social gatherings, we can reduce the spread of COVID-19. 2, our precious healthcare workers can keep up with the pace of the pandemic. This is personal to me, talking about our precious healthcare workers. I'm sure all of us know someone that works in healthcare, and let's think about them as well. It's simple, the things that we were being asked to do. I know that it's something we're giving up, and we're entering the season now when we are looking forward to spending time with friends and family, and that's going to be difficult. But this is something that we can do to make sure that we're all safe and we're taking care of people who ultimately will be taking care of people who become ill and end up in the hospital. That's something we can do, and we can do that together. I really believe that Kalamazoo is such a place where we put the caring first. So as we enter this holiday season, I want to wish the best to everybody. I want to remind everybody, keep your hearts open. And I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.